كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة ولي وحافظة وقائد وناصرة ودليلا وعينا حتى تسقنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيت بالكساء اليماني فغطيت به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمّا. فقلت: عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أمّا إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أمّا. فقلت: عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أمّا إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا، السلام عليك يا من اختار الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم ها هو ما ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وهما بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن هاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن أعداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا عرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيتي النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يكرمك السلام ويخصك بالتهية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا عرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبيه يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله؟ فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكمه كتابه الحكيم وقرآنه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل ما أسألكم عليه من أجر إلا من شاء أن يتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My congratulations to you on the first of the day of the month of Dhul Qa'dah, the 11th month of the Islamic calendar, on which we celebrate the occasion of the birth of Sayyida Fatima Ma'asuma bint Musa ibn Ja'far. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. This celebration for us is one of significance for many reasons, and there are many fine points to learn about and to know about, and to develop the lessons for ourselves and our communities from the example of Sayyida Ma'asuma. Today we'll mention briefly about her biography and a few of the important points that we should take away and learn from her as well. This lady, Sayyida Ma'asuma, her birth is on the 1st of Dhul Qa'dah, and the year of her birth, there are some different narrations, but the one that's most likely is in the year 173 after Hijrah, and her Shahadat is noted as being the 10th of the month of Rabi' al-Thani from the year 201 after Hijrah, which makes her life to be approximately about 28 years in total. And like her great-grandmother Sayyida Fatima, in a short life, she left a great impact on this world, such that till today her shafa'ah, her wasila, and her mention continues and remains for us. When we look at the example of this lady, we see that she is one who is given technonym and status by her grandfather, her father, and her brother. And she is the daughter of an imam, the sister of an imam, and the paternal aunt of an imam. All of these titles and statuses that we see about her show us that she is not a normal person, that she is someone who had unique characteristics. First, when we take a look at her lineage, we see that her father being the 7th imam, her mother's name is noted in history as being Tuqtam. This name has some history behind it, that the other name that this lady is known by is known as Sayyida Najma. What's said is that her name was Najma until she came to the house of Imam Musa-e-Kazim, and then her name was changed to Tuqtam. There's some debate about the origin of the mother of Sayyida Ma'asuma, but it's widely accepted that her birth was in Maghrib, and that she was brought from Maghrib, and she had lived her entire life amongst the Arab lands, and that she was eventually then brought to the house of Imam Musa-e-Kazim. And when he married her, he changed her name to Tuqtam. The word Tuqtam, not Taktam, not Tiktam, Tuqtam, comes from the Arabic language that means the well that surrounded the spring of Zamzam. The spring of Zamzam that we know, around it was built a well in which the water was then captured and stored, and that from that well then people would draw the water of the spring of Zamzam out. The spring of Zamzam is known as a source of shifa'a and barakah for all of people, and therefore the well of Tuqtam became one that was known as being a source of barakat and shifa'a and khair. When someone is named after, for example, a place of significance, it's to create some association between the two. For example, when we say that this person is like a lion, we're saying he's like a lion because he resembles some of the attributes of the lion, for example, bravery. So we say that, for example, I saw this lion enter into the building. We don't mean a literal lion. We're saying that some of the attributes of the lion that were in this person, therefore we describe him as being a lion. The same is true, for example, in this name of, say, the Najma, that's when Imam Musa-e-Kazim names her Tuqtam. This name is shown to say that she is a source of khair and barakah and goodness that came into this world, as she is not only the mother of Sayyida Ma'asuma, she's also the mother of our 8th Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And by the virtue of the position of Imam Rida, he is the father of the 9th Imam, the 10th Imam, the 11th Imam, and the 12th Imam. All of them go back to Imam Rida, and therefore the spring from which Imam Rida came, the source of khair and barakah from which he came, all of the other Aimma alayhimus salam are known by that source as well too. Famously, all of the Imams after Imam Rida are known as Ibn al-Rida, that they are known as the son of Imam Rida, that the people of the time, because of the status of Imam Rida being well known amongst the people, all of his sons and all of the Imams after him were known as the son of Imam Rida because he was the most well-known figure in that time for his nobility, his character, and for having this position that he did in the city of Tus. And all of that originates from his mother and this title given to her by the 7th Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, that from her would come khair and barakah. And part of this khair and barakah is the example of this Sayyida Ma'asuma. The name of Sayyida Ma'asuma is actually Fatima, and she's given the title of Ma'asuma. Now, if you notice, the two children of Sayyida Tuqtam are Ali and Fatima. And that these two names are something that, for example, in the households that love the Ahlul Bayt, are something that are cherished and are prevalent and are available in every household. You would be hard-pressed to find someone who is Madhab Ja'fari from the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen that in their house there isn't a Fatima or Ali. Yet when we take a look at the fact that these two names represent both the daughter of the Holy Prophet as well as his wasi, and that person who is acknowledged by all of Islam as being a great leader and a source of guidance for the religion of Islam, we find that other schools of thought don't have a prevalence of people by this name. And it's a source of disappointment for us that these names are not as loved by everyone. And part of that has to do with the impact of the governments that came and went, and how they persecuted the Ahlul Bayt and reduced their status in the eyes of people. But for us, we see that the significance of the name Ali, that after Imam Ali, there are 3 Imams who share this name. Imam Zainul Abidin, Imam Radha, and Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi. That the prevalence of this name and the importance of this name was signified that the A'immah alayhimus salam were named Ali so that our communities, our families would love this name. And the same is true of the name of Fatima, that it's such an important and special name that we see that in every household of an Imam, there are daughters named Fatima. That in the house of, whether we take a look at Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, all of the Imams, to the extent where Imam Musa ibn Ja'far had not one daughter named Fatima, but 4 daughters named Fatima. One who was Fatima Kubra, one who was Fatima Wusta, one who was Fatima Sughra. And this daughter, whose birth date we celebrate today, was known as Fatima Ma'asuma. In the life of Sayyida Fatima, we see that the first 10 years of her life are spent under her father. And in the year 183, when Imam al-Kadhim is martyred, that her care shifts from her father to being more entirely under her brother. Because of the frequent imprisonments of Imam al-Kadhim and the persecution that he suffered, Sayyida Ma'asuma spent most of her time in these years, even in these formative years, under the care of Imam al-Radha. Which is why it is Imam al-Radha who gives her the title of Ma'asuma, because he says, in her life, I have not seen her approach sin, therefore she is Ma'asuma, she is one who is sinless. Now, before we get into this attribute, it doesn't mean that Imam al-Kadhim had no time with his daughter. As a matter of fact, there's a very famous narration that comes to us that some travelers had come to the house of Imam al-Kadhim to see him, and they came with questions that they needed to answer. And when they came to the house, they found that Imam al-Kadhim was on a journey and that they were unable to see him, and that this young girl of Sayyida Ma'asuma says, leave your questions with us, we'll have them answered for you and returned to you to fulfill the answers that you need. Because the travelers were in a hurry, they couldn't stay, they left the questions, and they came back the next day to collect them, and Sayyida Ma'asuma presented them with the answers to their question. By chance, when they started their journey to leave the city of Medina, they ran and they met Imam Musa ibn Ja'far on the way. That Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was heading back to the city of Medina. They were heading out of the city of Medina. They met Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, and they said to him, Alhamdulillah for the barakah and the mercy of Allah that we had the opportunity to meet you. And we came to your house with some questions, and when you weren't available, we received the answers to our questions, and we wanted to go. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, they showed Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, they said, these are the answers we received from your house. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far reviewed all the answers and the questions, and he asked them, who gave you these answers? And they said, there was a daughter in your house by the name of Fatima Ma'asuma, and she gave us these answers. And very famously, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far says, may her father be sacrificed upon her. May her father be sacrificed upon her. 3 times he repeated this statement, may her father be sacrificed upon her. To show the azamat and the greatness of the service to Islam that Sayyida Ma'asuma had done in this status. The only other lady for whom this is narrated as having been said was our holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, saying it for his daughter Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In this way, we see the greatness of the status of Sayyida Ma'asuma, even from her father explaining to us how amazing her status is. And that this Sayyida Fatima Ma'asuma is the one who was given this knowledge and who had this knowledge and the ability to serve for the sake of Islam, even from a young age. And that she learned this from the culture that was established to her through her father and then by her brother. It's narrated and said that she spent most of her time in the care of her brother, who at the time of her birth, Imam Radha, was approximately, in some narrations, 25 years of age. So that she spent most of her time in his care, and that the relationship between Sayyida Ma'asuma and Imam Radha was more than just simply the relationship of brother and sister. That it was also the relationship of father and daughter, mother and son, everything that you could imagine. That the entire world that existed for Sayyida Ma'asuma was her brother Imam Radha, Which is why Imam al-Radha, when he's the one who is raising her, he's the one who says and gives her this title, that she is ma'suma, that she is the sinless one. This title within itself has a very interesting structure to it of the idea of what does it mean to be sinless? What does it mean to be ma'sum? And when we talk about ismat al-kubra, that greater ismat, that greater sinlessness that Allah designates, and the lesser sinlessness that the people who are around the Ahlul Bayt and that you and I can achieve, is a very interesting concept. First and foremost, especially for our youth, it's a very important point to note that you too can be sinless. You too should try to be sinless. And it is something you can achieve. Sinlessness, Allah, as He has described it, there are those people who have to be sinless for the sake of protecting the religion, and those are the ma'sumin and the anbiya. After that, the example of someone like Sayyida Fatima Ma'suma bint Imam Musa ibn Jafar, the example there for us is a person who, while their sinlessness is not something that Allah has mandated, they have raised themselves to the level that they don't commit sins and mistakes. There are other people who fit this example as well too, whether we look at Sayyida Zainab, we look at Hazrat Abbas, we look at some of, for example, the children and the family of Ahlul Bayt. They raised themselves to this status. And the point of commemorating them and learning about their example is to know that we too have this ability. You too can and should try to be sinless. And what that means is that every day of my life, I'm conscious of what Allah demands of me and has insisted that I perform, that is wajib for me. And I am aware of everything that Allah has forbidden for me and declared haram for me. And that while I make sure that I perform the wajib, I stay away from the haram. And every day that I make sure that I stay away from the forbidden actions and I perform the wajib actions is a day in which I am sinless, is a day in which I have achieved a level of ismat, of sinlessness. And my effort should be that every day when I wake up, my thought process is, today I will not commit a sin, today I will not violate the rules of Allah, and that we proceed throughout every single day in following this ideology of staying away from sin. It's our obligation. That's what we want to do. Don't assume or don't believe that you have to sin or that it's unavoidable. No, it's absolutely avoidable. It should be avoided. We can avoid it. We will avoid it. But we have to be conscious of it. At times we think of these levels of sinlessness as something so extreme and great and far away that it's impossible for us to attain. It's not. It's a question of consciousness. That am I conscious of Allah? Am I conscious of what He has demanded of me? Am I conscious of what He has forbidden from me? And that I'm trying to follow the guidelines that exist. It's a very simple concept, really. It's just not discussed often enough that it becomes foreign for us. But when we hear about and read about an example like Sayyida Ma'suma, whose name is the one who is sinless, whose title is the one who is sinless, it's a reminder and a refresher for us of what our obligation is and what we need to be trying to achieve in our life. And that it is attainable and it is something that we can have. The fact that Imam al-Radha, who himself is ma'sum, who himself is sinless, gives this title to Sayyida Ma'suma, gives this title to his sister Sayyida Fatima Ma'suma, it's an indication that the Imam doesn't lie and the Imam doesn't make a mistake. So it's entirely achievable, and it has been achieved in this character as a lesson for us to learn from her. Now, I want to talk about a couple other points in her life as well too, as we kind of get to the moral points. But this is a very big message of significance, that if today we are celebrating her birth date, then we should try to take this great lesson from her title. That every day that we don't sin against Allah, we earn a level of ismat or purity, and that she is an example that one who is careful, one who is attentive, one who focuses on Allah in their life can achieve a level of ismat. Not just that she is known as ma'suma, but we'll talk about how great her status truly is raised. Now, one of the questions that comes is, did she have any children? And that was she married? There are two answers to this. That no, first, well, there's one answer, but two reasons for it. The answer is no, she wasn't married. As a matter of fact, history notes that Imam Musa ibn Ja'far had 18 daughters. 18. And none of them were married. There's no noted history that talks about his daughters' marriages and where they were married. In the case of, for example, all of the daughters and why it's strange to hear that his daughters weren't married, one of the historical contexts and references that's given is that in the life of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, there was great persecution against him and his family. And that because of that persecution, no one would dare to approach to marry into the house of the Imam because of the fear of the persecution they would undergo. That Harun, Ma'mun, these people, they had made the life of the Imam and the family of the Imam in a state of constant persecution. And people in fear would not come and approach this house for marriage. In the case of Sayyida Ma'asuma, there's a second answer for why it's explained possibly that she didn't get married. And this answer goes back to the concept of understanding that there was no kuf for her. This term of kuf also comes out in the marriage of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and Bibi Fatima Zahra. That had it not been for Imam Ali alayhi salam, there would have been no kuf for Sayyida Fatima. This term kuf refers to equal or refers to of her level. And that it was said that there was no one of the level of Sayyida Ma'asuma, and as there was no one of that level, there was no one appropriate to whom she should be married. Now, the philosophy and the ideology of understanding the concept of kuf in relationship to marriage and building relationships for our children is one whose scope is outside of our conversation. Therefore, this is simply an introduction that says that one of the important factors that's taken into consideration when marrying off our children is to look and to make sure that, for example, that our children are married at a level or at a level of equality of faith and capacity, such that we don't take one whose capacity is higher and greater and tie them to one who is incapable of appreciating, respecting, or helping that personality grow and develop. In this concept, one of the answers that's given about the absence of marriage in the life of Sayyida Ma'asuma is that ma kana laha kuf, that there was no one who was of her level, such that, for example, a personality of this level of purity, of this level of truthfulness, of this level of sincerity, of this level of piety, that would she have been married, in the case of women especially, that the husband has authority over her, the authority over her would have been lower in status than her, and that would have been a position of disrespect or difficulty for her. And this conversation about understanding kuf, one of the examples that's discussed is the example of Sayyida Zainab. That for her there was someone who was appropriate. There was Abdullah ibn Ja'far, the nephew of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the one for whom Rasulullah had made dua, the one who was raised by the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the one who had grown up around the Ahlul Bayt, had a character and personality that was of the level of personality of Sayyida Zainab, such that a marriage between the two was appropriate. And again, as I mentioned, this is a longer conversation. May Allah give us tawfiq that inshallah we have the opportunity to discuss. And it's an important concept to understand that when we look into the marriage of our children and the marriage of our generations, there are many factors not just to consider, but to prepare our children for as well too. That don't just imagine that you need to be paying attention to this characteristic. You need to educate your children about this as well too. And one of the greatest factors of kuf for us as common people of our level is that Iman is one of the fundamentals that we look at when finding an appropriate spouse for our children. Again, we can get off into tangents, but our focus is the conversation around Sayyida Ma'asuma. So we come back to our conversation about Sayyida Ma'asuma. This Sayyida Ma'asuma, there is some interesting information, and obviously the events in history that we know about her are very limited. And that's because, again, of the government of the time refused to declare and let these personalities be known in society and to be well known. If Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who is the best of people after Rasulullah, the knowledge that was given about him was restricted in the world such that many people didn't know his attributes and didn't recognize him, such that at the time of the shahadat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, when it was announced that he was martyred in Masjid Kufa in prayers, the people of Sham questioned. They said, Ali used to pray. We did not know this about Ali ibn Abi Talib. If they can restrict that great personality to where no one knew him, it's understandable then that his children would obviously be less well known to us than even that, and that history would hide them away from us. So while it's true, there isn't too much that's known about her life, we do know that when Imam al-Rida was taken to the land of Tus, she proceeded to follow him, and that the proximity of relationship between the two of them was so much so that the separation from Imam Rida was very difficult for her, and that she wanted to go to him. Now, it's narrated that when she dies in the year 201, that some narrations say that she became ill on the way to Tus and they were taken to Qum, and that in the city of Qum she saw black flags that were up, and when she asked about them during her illness, they said it was because of the sorrow that they had for the shahadat of Imam Rida, and upon hearing the shahadat of that brother who she was going to meet, she too died of grief. There's one narration. The problem that we have with this narration is that Sayyida Ma'suma's death is narrated to be in the year 201 on the 10th of Rabi' al-Thani, and the shahadat of Imam al-Rida is narrated to be in the year 203. The more likely narrations that come to us is that on the way to Imam al-Rida, the attempt was made to stop her from being able to reach Imam al-Rida, and in this effort of stopping her, that she was either poisoned or her caravan was attacked, and that she was taken to the closest town of people who loved Ahlul Bayt, and that was the town of Qum, and that she passed away there. What increases the likeliness of this narration being true is the narration of the status of Sayyida Ma'suma that comes from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. That Imam al-Rida, in explaining the status of Sayyida Ma'suma, says, the one who visits my sister Ma'suma, wajib alayhi al-jannah, that heaven becomes mandatory for him. This one narration, if we knew nothing else about Sayyida Ma'suma except this one narration, that her brother said that one who visits the grave of my sister Ma'suma, one who visits my sister Ma'suma, heaven becomes mandatory for him, would tell us so much about this lady. First off, it corroborates the idea that her death was caused before the shahadat of Imam Rida, such that when the news of her shahadat and her burial reaches Imam Rida, he gives the instruction about the significance of visiting the grave of Sayyida Ma'suma. 1. 2, we see that for us to visit a ma'soom and the ziyarat of a ma'soom, to visit the ziyarat of one of the Ahlul Bayt, to us we would understand that their shafa'ah is sufficient to get us into heaven. Therefore, we should always have the raghba, the desire to visit one of the imams. But here is an imam who is sinless and perfect, giving instruction that this sister of mine possesses such a special status with Allah that by visiting her, you can go to heaven, and that heaven can become mandatory for you. Which is why the verse that we began our discussion with, from Surah Furqan, verse number 57, it's one of the verses where the people, when they asked the Holy Prophet, how shall we compensate you for this goodness and this message that you have brought us? Ya Rasulullah, you gave us the path for Allah, for us to know Allah and Allah to reward us. How can we compensate you for this reward? Famously in Surah Ash-Shura, we recite the verse, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى, that say, I don't want any reward from you. Allah is instructing the Prophet, say to the people, I don't want any reward from you except to have mawadda to my Ahlul Bayt, to have extreme love for my Ahlul Bayt, for my qurba, for my family. This verse of Surah Furqan is another verse that elaborates on this concept, where it says, قُلْ مَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا, that say, I don't want any reward from you except for those who want to take a straight path to their Lord. And then the third that we see is in Surah Ash-Shura, verse number 47. قُلْ مَا سَأَلْتُكُم مِّنْ أَجْرٍ فَهُوَ لَكُمْ. Where the Prophet says, he says, I don't want any reward for what I've brought for you, but whatever I ask you for is for you, and it will benefit you. This teaches us that our Prophet is giving us instruction, he's educating us, that if you want to have the path to Allah, if you want to have benefit for yourself, find the path to Allah, and that path to Allah is loving my Ahlul Bayt. And that the fact that Sayyida Ma'suma's status is such that by her ziyarat we are entitled to Jannah gives us the instruction that she is from amongst those who are considered as part of the Ahlul Bayt. May Allah give us tawfiq to appreciate and to learn about and to love this Sayyida, and may He give us the tawfiq to perform her ziyarah. From the first of the month of Dhul Qa'dah till the 11th of the month of Dhul Qa'dah are known as the days of the great generosity of Ali Muhammad, because on the first of this month is the birth date of Sayyida Ma'suma, and on the 11th is the birth date of her brother Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. These are days of dua and attaining proximity through these personalities to Allah. And our belief is that when we love the people that Allah loves, when we love the people that Allah commanded us to love by commanding His Prophet to instruct us to love them, we get closer to Allah. Let's take a moment and make dua on this day. نَدْعُوكَ بِاسْمِكَ الْعَظِيمِ الْأَعْظَمِ الْأَعَزِّ الْأَجَلِّ الْأَكْرَمِ 10 times call out in your sincerest of voices by the right of this lady. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Mahmud bihaqq Muhammad, Ya A'la bihaqq Ali, Ya Fatir al-Samawati bihaqq Fatima, Ya Muhsin bihaqq al-Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Ahsan bihaqq al-Hussein. Ya Allah, by the right of Sayyida Ma'suma, by the right of this month of Dhul Qa'dah, by the right of these days of Karama, Ya Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Ya Allah, entitle us to follow the example and the lessons that we learn from Sayyida Ma'suma and the noble family of Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, those amongst our families, our communities, the mu'mineen around the world who are suffering through sickness, by the mention of Sayyida Ma'suma, Karimati Ahlul Bayt, give shifa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they may be. Ya Allah, we have come with hajat, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, we are in states of difficulty, remove the difficulties from the mu'mineen and give security to the mu'mineen wherever they are in this world. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us and our lineage from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman, and entitle us to the Shafa of Imam al-Hussein in dunya and in akhirah. On this noble occasion, let's recite 1 time Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, to share with the arwah al-mu'mineen, those who have passed away before us, from amongst our relatives, our families, the communities, and those that have no one to recite Fatiha for them, so that they may be included in the celebrations of this day with us, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
एक साहिब मुझसे बोला, छोड़ दो ज़िक्रे हुसैन, इसलिए के गम मुहर्रम का पुराना हो गया। मैंने फरमाया कि साहिब होश में हो या नहीं, چھوڑ دو کعبے کو کہ اب وہ پرانا ہو گیا، چھوڑ دو کعبے کو کہ اب وہ پرانا ہو گیا۔ بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔ وہ نور جس کو شہ مشرقین کہتے ہیں، اسی کو نور خدا نور عین کہتے ہیں۔ بکھر گیا جو وہی نور کائنات بنا، سمٹ گیا تو اسی کو حسین کہتے ہیں۔ ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین لے ہیں، ہم نبی کے عاشق ہیں، ہم علی کے دیوانے، ہم نبی کے عاشق ہیں، ہم علی کے دیوانے، اور حسن سے نسبت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم لے ہیں۔ ہم سے فاطمہ زہرا کر چکی ہے ایک وعدہ، اب ہماری جنت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین والے، ہم حسین والے۔ یا علی کی مدحت ہے، یا حسین کا ماتم، یا علی کی مدحت ہے، یا حسین کا ماتم، ہر نفس عبادت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین ہم بتاتے دنیا کو، ہم سے پوچھتی دنیا، غم میں کتنی لذت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین دور تک گئے موسیٰ اور کربلا تک ہم، یہ ہماری رفعت ہے، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین ہیں، ہم حسین والے ہیں، ہم حسین۔ افضل الصلاة محمد وآل محمد. جنت کا نظارہ روزہ ہے تمہارا، دیکھا جو تیرا در دل میرا پکارا. تو فرش کے مالک تو عرش کا سلطان، یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان. مشہد کی شبوں میں دن کے ہیں اشارے، دن رات مسلسل ظاہر ہے تمہارے. سب جن و ملک ہے ہر نسل کے انسان، یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان. اے والی مشہد اے وارث حیدر، چوکھٹ پہ تمہاری رکھنا ہے مجھے سر. صد شکر کہ تم نے پورا کیا ارمان، یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان. برتی ہے دلوں میں ہر دم تیری چاہت، صدیوں سے ہمارے دل پر ہے حکومت. یہ دل بھی فدا ہے یہ جان ہے قربان، یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان یا شاہ خراسان، یا وارث قرآن یا مولا رضا جان. افضل الصلاۃ محمد وآل محمد. الہی بیمار داشتے بلا، جو بیمار ہو جلد پاوے شفا. الہی برائے امام زمان، ہمیں ہول میں شس دے تو امان. قیامت کو معشور ہو باعلی، اٹھے قبر سے کہتے ہم یا علی. اے پانچ و نو مل چہادہتان، احمد و علی زہرا و حسن. شبیر سے لیک تا امام زمان، شبیر سے لیک تا امام زمان. ایک ایک پہ صدا صلوات پرو، صلوات صلوات کے اس پہ نثار گوہر، جو نبی بلند صفات ہوئے. صلوات صلوات و سلام یا امام زمان، فرماؤ ظہور یا امام زمان. صلوات. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر اللهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولى وابن مولى، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك وعلى أختك فاطمة المأسومة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان، أجل الله لك ما وعدك من النصر وظهور الأمر، وجعلنا الله من شيعتك وعوانك والمستشهدين بين يدي. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، لتعجيل الفرج ولقضاء الحوائج ولشفاء المرضى وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. رحم الله من يقرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.